Mr. President, as we continue to debate this year's National Defense Authorization Act on the floor this week, I want to take a few minutes as the ranking member of the Armed Services Strategic Forces Subcommittee to discuss provisions of the bill that relate to our nation's nuclear deterrent and non-proliferation programs, missile defense, and space programs. I want to start by thanking all the members of the Strategic Forces Subcommittee for putting in another year of hard work. I'd especially like to thank our subcommittee chairman, my colleague from Alabama, Senator Sessions, for the strong partnership we have built over the past 2 years leading this committee together. I want my colleagues to note that Senator Sessions and his staff work closely together with me and my staff in developing elements of the bill pertaining to the Strategic Forces Subcommittee. Together with our colleagues, we have built bipartisan consensus on some of the most important issues in this bill. No small feat when we are talking about things like nuclear weapons and defending against missile threats from Iran and North Korea. I'd also like to thank the tremendous professionals on our staff, both Republican and Democratic, whose expertise and dedication to serving the national interest are essential to this bill's success. In developing the base language for the NDAA, the Strategic Forces Subcommittee held 5 hearings and a number of briefings on topics ranging from nuclear policy and deterrence to missile defense to protecting our satellites in space during a time of increasing threats from potential adversaries who seek to exploit the fragile nature of these assets. In the area of nuclear forces, our subcommittee has prioritized the need to update our nation's nuclear command and control infrastructure to ensure our ability to communicate with our nuclear forces in a time of national crisis. We have also examined the role of our nation's deterrence policy towards Russia and made available $28 million to shore up our NATO nuclear mission, over and above the funding for the European Reassurance Initiative. These funds will help provide much-needed upgrades to the readiness of our dual-capable aircraft and other activities to exercise our nuclear mission in support of NATO. Within the Department of Energy's National Nuclear Security Administration, we continue to fully authorize the W-76 submarine missile warhead life extension program, where upwards of 2/3 of our deterrent will exist upon full implementation of the New START Treaty. We also continue to life extend the B-61 gravity bomb in support of our NATO allies. And we have fully authorized the life extension of the W-80 cruise missile warhead, which will support the air leg of our triad. The subcommittee has continued full support for the Nunn-Lugar Cooperative Threat Reduction Program, which marks its 25th anniversary this year. And I would like to thank Senator Lugar and Senator Nunn for their extraordinary service to this nation. This program, as indicated, named for my fellow Hoosier and predecessor, Senator Richard Lugar, combats nuclear proliferation by helping nations detect nuclear materials crossing their borders and by securing nuclear materials in their countries to keep it out of the hands of terrorists. In addition to work with nuclear material, the program also addresses biological threats, helping other nations secure dangerous pathogens. In the case of the Ebola epidemic, the program was able to help the 101st Airborne Division develop rapid field diagnostics to quickly screen infected patients from those who simply had a fever unrelated to the disease. Many have credited this program's quick response, combined with the capabilities of the 101st Airborne, with reversing the tide of the Ebola epidemic before it spread to large cities. In the area of cutting-edge hypersonic systems, The bill provides full funding for programs like conventional prompt strike that aim to even the global playing field on hypersonic system development. According to public reports, Russia and China are prioritizing the development of hypersonic weapons and making troubling progress relative to our own. If we are to maintain our nation's technological edge over our potential adversaries, we need to invest in this critical area of research and development. While the House authorizers and appropriators have also fully funded conventional prompt strike, I was surprised and troubled to see that the Senate Appropriations Committee has proposed cutting this program by almost half. I hope to work with my colleagues on both sides of the aisle to address this issue and restore full funding to conventional prompt strike in the coming months. In the area of electronic warfare, our subcommittee has required the commander of U.S. Strategic Command to coordinate and develop joint execution plans to operate and fight in a domain that includes electronic jamming and other means that disrupt our fragile electronic systems. Russia has a long-established doctrine in this area, but ours has been lacking. This provision will help reverse that trend. In the area of missile defense, the subcommittee has fully authorized the President's budget request for the Missile Defense Agency and authorized additional funding for key development areas, including the redesigned kill vehicle, the multi-object kill vehicle, and an improved ground-based interceptor booster. The NDAA also requires a review of DoD's strategy and capabilities for countering cruise and ballistic missiles before they are launched. And it directs the MDA to conduct a flight test of the GMD system at least once each fiscal year. The bill provides funding above and beyond the President's budget request for our collaborative missile defense programs with Israel, including Iron Dome, David Sling, and Arrow. However, given the threat posed by Iran's growing ballistic missile arsenal, I believe these programs require additional funding, particularly for procurement related to David Sling and the Arrow systems. These programs are more important than ever and have my full support. In the area of space, the NDAA addresses a number of important issues related to our critical satellite-based capabilities. This week, we commemorated the 72nd anniversary of D-Day. Anyone who knows the history of the Normandy invasion knows how critical a role weather forecasting can play in the success or failure of a mission. This year's bill pays close attention to DoD's ability to provide weather data to our troops around the world, particularly in CENTCOM's area of responsibility. Our current fleet of weather satellites is aging, and our subcommittee has taken DoD to task for its failure to adequately plan for the upcoming gap in cloud cover data over the Indian Ocean. Whether we're talking about GPS, weather, surveillance, or communications, our nation's space-based capabilities are fundamentally dependent on our ability to get to space. There's no question we must maintain the ability to send national security satellites into space with launch systems that are affordable and, above all, supremely reliable. We learned a hard lesson on reliability in the late 1990s when we lost 3 national security satellites to launch failures. Those failures cost the taxpayer more than $3 billion and lost our nation a critical communications capability we didn't replace for more than a decade. Subsequently, years of monopoly in DoD space launch taught us a hard lesson about the necessity of competition to keep costs down. While we all agree on the need to maintain what's known as assured access to space, how we best meet that goal has become the topic of heated debate, particularly since our deteriorating relationship with Russia put a spotlight on the fact that DoD uses Russian rocket engines in many of its space launches. We need to end our nation's reliance on Russian engines with the development of an American-made alternative. We have studied the facts on this issue in painstaking detail on the Strategic Forces Subcommittee for not just months, but years. The fact is, if we want to end our reliance on Russian engines without jeopardizing the reliability and affordability that are essential to a successful launch program, it's going to take another few years. I'm not satisfied with that. I want to see it happen faster. In the meantime, though, we have to take seriously the warnings of our military and intelligence community that eliminating access to the RD-180 engine prematurely before a replacement is ready to fly would seriously undermine our national security interests. As it currently stands, the NDAA would ban the use of RD-180 engines years before a replacement is ready, and instead rely on the more expensive Delta rocket to fill the gap. I respect the careful thought behind this proposal and the effort to ensure we don't create a capability gap. Ultimately, this approach, though, would cost the taxpayer an additional $1.5 billion and divert funds from developing an American-made replacement engine and launch system to paying for these more expensive Delta launches. At a time when we continue to face budgetary challenges in defense and domestic spending, this is a cost and a risk we don't need. With that in mind, I support the bipartisan amendment number 4509 offered by my colleagues Senator Nelson and Senator Gardner. This amendment grants DoD access to only those Russian engines it needs between now and 2022, when the department has said a replacement will be ready. I believe this is the most responsible approach to a very difficult issue. Let me close by again thanking Senator Sessions for the productive and bipartisan relationship we have had on this subcommittee. I'd also like to thank our full committee chairman, Senator McCain, and our ranking member, Senator Reid, for their leadership and their dedication to strengthening our national security and caring for our military. I look forward to working with my colleagues to pass this important legislation and to see it signed into law. Mr. President, I yield back any remaining time that's been allotted.